It's your boy Brian Cotton. I'm gonna keep pounding today. Panthers had a tough game last night. My only concern was Cam Newton's back. From everything that I've read or heard, it was a contusion in his low or middle back. Seems like he's gonna be all right. That's all I really concern myself with preseason games. They've already said that he's gonna play against Pittsburgh. When wins and losses count towards your record, like if your preseason record going into the regular season, what you did in the preseason kind of weighs on your record when the games actually start counting. Please let me know so I can wake up when it's August. I'll watch a Panthers preseason game. I live in Lexington. I had the NFL Network. I recorded it. I glanced through it a little bit this morning, mainly to see what happened to Cam Newton in his back. I don't get these preseason games. I get the Sunday ticket every year. That's how I get to watch the Panthers during the season. But preseason, it's exciting. The first couple preseason games are exciting for me. Now, I know the third game is the dress rehearsal, but by the third game, I'm just so stressed out that somebody's going to get hurt that I just want it to be over. The first couple preseason games are exciting because it's football. Football's back, and it's exciting. But until they start handing out Lombardi trophies at the end of preseason, please, I don't care about preseason. I just don't. I think it's good. As far as wins and losses, now that's not to say that preseason is completely meaningless because it allows, especially right now, Cam Newton's getting that chemistry down with Kelvin Benjamin a little bit through his first two preseason games. He's probably not going to play much the third game. I wouldn't even play Cam Newton the third game. I wouldn't even risk his back getting hurt. But, that's just me. But, I think preseason does serve its purpose where you can evaluate some players that have less notoriety. Maybe they can surprise you like a Fozzie Whitaker or somebody like that. Other than that, preseason, I wish that they didn't have it. To be honest with you. It's just one of those things where they don't count. The only thing that can happen is that one of your players can get injured. Like Cam Newton last night could have really been bad with his back. But thankfully, it wasn't that big of a deal. So that's just my thoughts on the preseason game last night. And, the Patriots, y'all Patriots fans, still bitching about that Luke Kuechly play at the end of that game. If you could stop Cam Newton on that last drive, they wouldn't even come down to that, first of all. Second of all, your team has no room to complain about bad calls. Because let's not forget the Tuck Rule call. That bad call is what started y'all's dynasty last decade. And let's not forget also that the Patriots haven't won a Super Bowl since Spygate. So there can be some questions as to how much Spygate really, contributed to y'all's Super Bowl run. So please stop complaining about that play. Tom Brady threw it short, right into the hands of a safety for the Panthers. Even if Kuechly doesn't hold Gronkowski, you still got the safety to take into account that got the interception. And the only thing that Gronk could have done was to interfere with Lester, climbing over his back, shoving him out of the way to make that catch. So your argument is moot. Can we please move on? That was last November. There's some losses that are hard to swallow for me, but I'm not going to complain about them when it's the next season. It didn't cost y'all a playoff spot. All it costed you guys was just your pride. You lost to the Panthers. Get over it. Another thing I got going on today is fantasy football draft. I'm interested to know how some of my other Panthers fans, how you all do your fantasy football, if you play it. You know, sometimes I was listening to the radio, and sometimes they were talking about how sometimes being a fantasy football player can make you a bad fan. I have refused to let fantasy football make me a bad fan, in the sense that the Panthers always come first for me, and fantasy football comes second. And I've got some rules for myself, and I just want everybody to know that when I first got into fantasy football, I was that homer guy. And you know what? I won my damn league in 2008 with D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, Jake Delhomme, and Steve Smith. The Panthers defense, John Beeson and Julius Peppers. We do three individual defensive players. Yeah, everybody used to make fun of me for that. They can't make fun of me because I won our damn league playing that way. I don't do that anymore. It's the wagon kind of fell off on that. I've kind of gotten better at fantasy football since then, as far as not loading up on these Panthers. But anyway, but the reason why I did that was because fantasy football, for what it is, it's fun. But, I've always said that the Panthers are going to be first. So, I got some Panthers on my team. So that way, when the Panthers were doing well, fantasy team did well. And, I could cheer. It made me more, not that I needed more motivation to cheer for the Panthers, but it added a little bit of incentive to really cheer these guys on. But it got to the point where, as a fan, like I was wanting like Cam Newton to throw it to Greg Olsen instead of Brandon LaFell. And it's like, just throw it to the guy that's open. So, I've gotten rid of a lot of Panthers. I've gotten rid of that strategy that I've had. But, I won my damn league in 2008. So, nobody can even, throw that in my face again. Because, they'll say something about it now. And I'll just say 2008, and that's all I got to say. But anyway, I've got several rules for myself. Rule number one is I don't care if they're the best player in the NFL and I could pick them up. I will never have a Saint, a Falcon, or a Buccaneer on my fantasy team. Never. I will never cheer for anybody from one of those three teams. I refuse to do that. And if a player is playing against Carolina that might be on my team, they're on the bench that week. Because I don't want to be one of those fans that says, well, I hope the Panthers win 30-29, but my wide receiver for the other team gets those 4 touchdowns. I don't want to be that guy. If you're playing the Panthers, you're on the bench. If you play for one of their rivals, you're not on the team. Couple of my rules. And the Panthers always come first. If the Panthers win, like last year, my fantasy team, I think it was 5-8, but Carolina was 12-4. I'm not going to get all bent out of shape because my fantasy team was bad. Fantasy football for me is something that keeps me a little bit more engaged with the rest of the NFL, but I don't let it take over my fandom for the Panthers. And I think that it is true that fantasy football has ruined people's fandom for their teams if they allow it to. So let me know in the comment section, like how do you treat fantasy football in relation to your fandom for the Panthers? Do you have rules like me where if it affects the Panthers in any way, negative or whatever, that they're not on your team? Let me know about that. I'm really interested to know about that. But as for me, we've got our fantasy football rookie draft. I'm going to have to draft a quarterback because our league is great. We've got 25 roster spots, 12 teams, so there's a lot of players that get picked up. It's kind of like the NFL in some ways, where you can't just go on the waiver wire and get, good quality talent. You got to draft it, you got to trade for it. And that's just, I love our league for that. But I think that we should have a limit on quarterbacks. And let me know in the comment section too, because we've got teams where I think half of the NFL starting quarterbacks from last season were on 3 teams. And Cam Newton was on a bye week last year, and Blaine Gabbert was injured, and Matt Flynn. That's kind of like where I was I drafted Cam Newton and Blaine Gabbert in the same draft to have my 2 young quarterbacks. And, of course, Blaine Gabbert flamed out. But I had no opportunity because they want to talk to me, the other owners. Well, you can trade for it. I'm not going to trade somebody that I'm going to use every week for a quarterback I'm only going to use on a bye week or as an emergency in case my starting quarterback gets hurt. I'm going to have to waste a draft pick on a damn quarterback like Johnny Manziel or somebody. If Kelvin Benjamin, I picked 10th. If Kelvin Benjamin's there, and there's quarterbacks left, I'm going to take Benjamin. And, I know I just got done saying I don't do this, but I think at number 10, I think if Benjamin's there, I think he's the best value pick. He's going to be the best player available. But, there could be guys that reach for quarterbacks. So, I could get an Eric Ebron or, one of these other wide. I don't know, but, I just think Benjamin's going to be a touchdown machine, and I'd be a fool to pass him up. But I really, honestly don't have a whole ton of Panthers on my team anymore. I've kind of gotten rid of that whole thing. I traded the Panthers defense last year to a playoff, a owner that was going to the playoffs, and he didn't have a good defense. Traded the Panthers defense for DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Wallace, and Jarrett Boykin last year. So, I got some 3, decent. Obviously Hopkins, he's got a lot of potential. And all that. And, Mike Wallace, he can put up numbers. You never know what he's going to do. And Boykin's in that passing offense with Aaron Rodgers. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Keep pounding my Panthers fans. Let me know how you do fantasy football. Let me know what you think about this Panthers game against the Patriots. I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully I'll have a good draft today. Wish me luck. Keep pounding. I'll see y'all later.